啊，谁来了？你好，你好。哎呀，今天再来看看他们的debate啊。他们今天不是下午debate，前面已经debate完了。我反正正好有时间啊，今天再来看一下。能听得见吗？能听得见，跟姜饼哥讲一下。能听得见吗？等人稍微来一点，我们再开始放啊。好，有2位。拿到护照的第2天就走了，这个是刚说的嘛？我们来听听啊，听听他们的debate。稍微来几个人吧，等个几分钟，我们等几分钟好吗？来的就给姜饼哥点点赞，谢谢大家。我很想听听他们第2天是怎么debate的啊。我们还是看那个，他这个是应该是新的啊，2个小时前的。这上面写的是witness all the action in House of Commons as Canada election official debate issue day。我看一下，后面还有，等几个人来？5个人，再来几个。谢谢，你们大家打声招呼吧。打声招呼。把这个稍微放大一点，你们可以看清楚一点，画面大一点，脸小一点。谁来了？这个是谢维义，是谢维义嘛？这个后面应该是姓对吗？还是维义谢？维义笑不是维义笑，维义谢。你好。我们等几个人来，我们来放好吗？等，稍微来几个人。我也是没有通知啊，就因为昨天听了一半，来了8个人了，有谁来了？那我们就先放吧，省得等会儿人又走了。
Oral questions, questions orales, the honourable leader of the opposition.
Jamais dans l'histoire.
Never in history has a budget ever forced Canadians to pay so much for so little. Every dollar that the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. He has broken his promises. He promised to spend less. He's spending $90 billion more net. That's $5,400 per family. He doubled the deficit of the Trudeau government, and he has added more debt than in any other year other than COVID years. Why is he doing this when Canadians cannot pay their bills? He's forcing them to pay even more. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a solid budgetary position. It is the 2nd lowest deficit in the G7. It has the lowest net debt in the G7 and a budget that invests in Canada because we believe in Canada here.
Solid position 啊，非常坚固的。
This Prime Minister is becoming the most expensive Prime Minister in the history of our country. In fact, it is bankers who are profiting, and Canadians will have to pay $55 billion on the interest of the national debt, and that is more than we are spending on health transfers, and it is more than the government gets from the GST. every cent that Canadians pay in sales tax is not going to doctors and nurses, it's going to bankers. Why did the Prime Minister send healthcare money to bankers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the debt burden right now is lower than it was when the government was conservative, and that is true. It's lower than when the conservative government was in power. Second, we are investing in Canada, and we are protecting healthcare transfers and money for education and for social programs sent to provinces.
Never before have Canadians had to spend so much to get so little. This budget, with its record deficit outside of COVID, is a deficit twice as the size of the one Trudeau left behind, and $16 billion bigger than the Prime Minister promised. It has, in this spending, $5,400 of extra costs for every family in more expensive government. While Canadians are already unable to eat, heat, and house themselves, why is this Prime Minister's costly budget making them pay even more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget has 75% of the measures are for our sovereignty, to protect our borders, to protect our communities, to protect our way of life. And the balance is for affordability, a middle-class tax cut that the member opposite missed because he was not here. Mr. Speaker, this budget invests in Canada at twice the rate as any budget during this millennium. We believe in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It is twice as expensive as any other budget, and it makes generational debt. And speaking of sovereignty, what about food sovereignty, Mr. Speaker? The Prime Minister's budget increases taxes on food production, with the industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, storage bins, and food processing plants. Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's food professor, says that it is arguably the most damaging aspect of the Liberal carbon tax. It is a tax across the supply chain that undermines the competitiveness of our agri-food sector. Why is the Prime Minister threatening our food sovereignty and driving up our food prices?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the spring, this government removed the divisive consumer carbon tax, and that has a consequence. That is a consequence for any business, any farm that emits less than 50 kilotons, which is every farm across this country. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Climate Institute has done the analysis, and the impact of the industrial carbon tax on inflation is zero.
Apparently, the Prime Minister is still under the misconception that Canadians don't use steel. You remember that interview when he told CTV, he asked the CTV interviewer, "You don't use steel, do you, Steve?" Well, of course, farmers use steel in order to produce their food, in order to store their grains. Processors use steel in the apparatuses of their conveyor belts. The tax on fertilizer and equipment drives up the cost of food, not according to Conservatives, but according to Sylvain Charlebois. So is the Prime Minister going to tell Canadians that an industrial carbon tax on Canadian farmers is not driving up the price of...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices in Canada is approximately zero.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Still thinks we use zero steel, Mr. Speaker. But on another subject, unfortunately a much darker subject. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled that a 1-year prison sentence was too much for possession of child abuse and exploitation materials. That sentence was already far too low for the two dirtbags who had literally hundreds of impressions and videos of children being tortured. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, invoke the notwithstanding clause in order to put the rights of children ahead of the rights of those who abuse them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
被折磨的那个视频。
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I join all members of this House in condemning the exploitation of children as the most reprehensible sorts of crime. Mr. Speaker, that is why this government will be bringing forth legislation to combat these crimes, to penalize those who are responsible. That works within our Constitution.
L'honorable député de
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly.
好，这个法国人来
Mr.
了。
Speaker, you are well known for your financial knowledge, and in theory, the Prime Minister is known for that too. But let's be serious. Let us not try to fool people. Let us ask the Prime Minister to ask why tax credits for oil companies, the organization of FIFA, or health transfers are assets for the government.
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important aspects of the budget is the tax credits for investment into clean
这个翻译不行
electricity.
了，这个翻译
That represents $4 billion for Quebec for investments there. That is one of the main reasons to support this budget. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. I don't expect the Prime Minister to want to answer my question. A tax credit. You are paying money to someone who gets the benefit of that credit. It comes out of government coffers. You cannot say that it is an investment, the value of which you are keeping with on your asset sheet. Does the Prime Minister think that accountants are idiots and that Canadians are idiots as well? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to underline that Hydro-Quebec will be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this budget, and the environment will be the other big beneficiary. With it, when it comes to carbon capture,
魁北克是这
the
个 budget 里
truth
面受益最大
is
的
that
地方。
right now, Quebec is using 350,000 barrels of oil a day. So carbon has to be captured for the production and transport of those barrels. The member for Belleuil-Chambly. It seems that there's embarrassment in the air, Mr. Speaker. So that's wonderful if money is going into good projects, and yes, it has been decided that it is good, but it is an expenditure. It's really, the Prime Minister must recognize that his budget is an austerity budget so that he can fund oil companies at Quebec's expense. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
换一个翻译。
Mr. Speaker, this budget is an investment budget. It's a budget for generational investment. The pace of investment is twice as quick,
这个预算
and
是
this budget
是
is
世纪
going
预
to
算
stimulate
是为加拿大怎么讲一大
$1
堆
trillion
好的
worth of
东西
investment by the
这
end
个
of
这个钱
the
会带来
decade. It's
1
a
万亿的
growth
投资啊
budget for Quebec for Canada.
现在加拿大是人家工厂都
In addition to cooking the books, the Prime Minister also rigged his GST rebate on housing to make sure that 95% of home buyers would not qualify for any break at all. Zero, zip, zilch. And the Prime Minister, meanwhile, puts a new rising tax on steel, aluminum, glass, cement, concrete, all the things that go into making a home. In other words, the industrial carbon tax is a housing tax. With Liberals already having doubled housing costs, will the Prime Minister axe the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford a home?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader persists and doubles down on these fake, imaginary taxes that exist only in his head and on the talking points that he hands out. What I will tell you is this is a budget where conservative-minded voters, people who think of voting conservative in elections, you know what they like about it? They like the hope. They like the ambition. They like the economic growth. They like bringing this country together from coast to coast to coast to invest in our potential, to invest in our young people, and to grow this country to be the best in the G7, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget. Does that mean the budget is a fictional document? Here it is on page 106, strengthening the industrial.
The honourable member may continue now that the prop has been put away.
Mr. Speaker, they say their budget is a prop and its contents are imaginary. We're in real trouble. Homes take steel, they take aluminum, they take concrete and cement and glass. The industrial carbon tax drives all those things up with our youth unable to afford homes. Why don't they get rid of this tax so that we can bring down the cost of housing?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, you know what this budget does? It builds communities. It builds opportunities for young people in our communities. It ties this country together in a common refrain of hope and optimism and investing in ourselves. We're going to be investing in new homes. We're going to be investing in housing for young people. We're going to build it with that Canadian steel. We're going to build it with that Canadian lumber. We're going to build it with that best thing that we have, that Canadian ingenuity that exists in the youngest and the oldest, the skilled tradespeople of this country. We are going to build Canada. Conservatives like that, liberals like that. Let's build the country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After the Prime Minister's depressing speech demanding young people make more sacrifices, I think the Liberal House Leader asked ChatGPT to write him up a little poem about how he could inject hope into his message. It didn't work, Mr. Speaker. Young people need houses for them to have hope. Houses are needed to raise families. Houses are needed to build equity and collateral and credit history. But the Prime Minister insists on applying an escalating industrial carbon tax that will raise the cost of everything that goes into making a home. So with the Liberals doubling housing costs already, why won't they get rid of this tax?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know housing is top of mind for young Canadians, and we have heard them loud and clear. Budget 2025 delivers on affordable housing for young Canadians. It focuses on affordable housing and co-ops. It delivers on GST for first-time homebuyers, up to 47,000 homes that will see a big reduction in GST. Building all of these homes creates jobs for young people in the trades, great jobs for young Canadians. This budget delivers affordability for young Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has doubled lineups at food banks to well over 2 million people. And right now, food prices are rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States, which means it can't be some global or foreign factor on which we blame those rising costs. But Sylvain Charlebois, Canada's leading food price expert, says the industrial carbon tax, which is not only still in place but is rising quickly in this costly budget, is partly to blame. So single mothers, small businesses, and seniors can feed themselves while they get rid of this terrible tax on food.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
As a former former single mother myself, I can tell you the kinds of things that single mothers, in fact families, are looking for is affordability. That's in this budget. Whether it's a middle-class tax cut for 22 million Canadians, whether it's protecting $10 a day childcare, by the way, a game changer for women, especially single mothers, but whether it's making the school food program permanent, whether it's investing in building trades, the kinds of infrastructure investments that will lead to good paying jobs. We're here for young people, Canadians. Young Canadians.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, since they started promising that program, the number of children lined up at food banks has doubled to 700,000. And food prices are actually rising 40% faster in Canada than they are in the United States of America. The questions I've been asking are to the Prime Minister. Apparently he doesn't have time to answer questions about homes and food when Canadians cannot afford to feed and lodge themselves. So once again, will the Prime Minister get rid of his regressive industrial carbon tax on Canadian foods so that single mums and seniors can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians don't have time for the kind of antics that the Conservative Party performs every single day. What Canadians want is investment in their families, investment in their children, investment in the kinds of infrastructure in small communities all across this country, including in my riding, that are going to make life affordable, that are going to build up the kind of infrastructure that allows for us to get ahead. And Mr. Speaker, lots of Conservatives feel that way in my riding. They told me so, and they've donated.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, the last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of deficits of less than 1% of GDP. This budget doubles those deficits, averaging 2% of GDP. The last Liberal budget had a fiscal anchor of declining debt to GDP. This budget increases debt to GDP. Will the government admit that its fiscal anchor is weaker than the previous Trudeau governments?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Speaker, I know they're having a bad week over there, but yesterday we tabled an historic budget to build our economy for Canadians, by Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. We will spend less on wasteful spending so we can invest in our country and build our country, our economy into the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, from Canadians from coast to coast to coast support our budget. It's time for us to come together in this House like Canada. Time for the party opposite to support our budget.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, last July, bond rating agency Fitch warned that a material rise in the debt to GDP and a material rise in our deficits could lead to a credit downgrade. This budget doubles deficits and leads to ever-increasing debt to GDP. Will the government acknowledge that it is putting this country's credit rating at risk, not only to mention that it's saddling younger Canadians with a mountain of national debt?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Speaking of young Canadians are looking at this budget for generational opportunities. We are unlocking new markets for them. Budget 2025, we're getting young Canadians, young entrepreneurs ready to get export ready through our SMA readiness program. Secondly, once they're export ready, we will launch the Can Export program to support them, attend trade shows globally to showcase their goods. And once they have orders ready to go out, EDC will step in to support them to get into new markets around the world. This is how we're helping young Canadians and young entrepreneurs access new markets and create jobs here at home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of talk about a generational deficit of $78 billion in the budget, and it's true. What are the main points of this budget? The defense is the main priority, and the end to the struggle against climate change is done. There's even more credits for oil companies. These are all choices that Stephen Harper would have made because they are conservative choices. It's so conservative, in fact, that a conservative member became liberal. And so we have a liberal deficit with conservative priorities, and through it all, why is there nothing for the priorities of Quebecers? The Honourable Member of Industry, the Minister of Industry. I know my colleague very well, and I know his writing very well, and there's something that is clear, and that is in his writing when you talk about expenditures on defense, that has an impact in Mirabel, that has an impact at CAE, and for Airbus, for Dextron as well, it's going to have an impact on thousands of jobs in Mirabel. And my colleague right now is saying that this budget is not delivering anything for Quebec and for Mirabel. I think maybe he's disconnected from reality. The honourable member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, a deficit of $78 billion will have impact on the coming generations in my writing, but there's worse than that. The Liberals are creating this deficit, and they're announcing cuts to health transfers, and they're not investing anything for seniors, and they're refusing a preferential rate for the first-time home buyers, and they're replacing the only housing building program that works in Quebec by Build Homes Canada, which is going to slow everything down, Mr. Speaker. How is it possible to create a deficit of $78 billion and by giving up on all of Quebecers' needs? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we were asked to invest more to build hospitals. We said, what did we say? Yes, excellent idea. We'll put it in the budget. And you can read, he could read the pages in the budget and he'd see it there in black and white. Quebecers said, we want you to protect our language and culture. We want you to invest in that because it's important to us. The Minister of Finance and the Minister of Culture, Quebec and Canadian culture, promised to invest more than ever in art and cultures. So when did you vote for this member?
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, 6 cents of every dollar was used to pay interest on the national debt. Yesterday's budget confirms that that number will more than double to 13 cents of every dollar. That's almost $76 billion going to bankers and bondholders to pay interest on the national debt. That's even more than the government will receive from taxing and GST. This, when the finance minister says he's making generational investments, is he just saddling the next generation with his unaffordable budget?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite simply is overlooking that Canada has a AAA credit rating, the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, has been world acclaimed in terms of a home for direct foreign investment, top of the G20 there, Mr. Speaker. The difference between that side of the House and this side of the House is that we believe in Canada. We believe in Canadians. We're diversifying supply chains and we're investing in our population so that we become the strongest economy in the G7. We ask them to join us.
The Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Speaker, the difference is that every Liberal finance minister seems to keep breaking their fiscal promises. They said the deficits would be low and temporary. They were long and very large. They said the deficit would be capped. They said the deficit, the debt to GDP ratio would continue going down. The ratio went up and the deficits blew through the cap. Now we have a new finance minister with a new, weaker fiscal anchor. Will the finance minister confirm that this anchor is weaker, and how long before he breaks his promise too?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we are a nation of builders. We're building it for young people. We have the best net to GDP ratio in the G7. We are building affordable homes. We're investing in trades and hospitals. We're creating 100,000 new summer jobs. We are investing in entrepreneurs. Why, Mr. Speaker? This is a budget of resilience. This is a budget of strength. This is a budget of hope. Why don't the Conservatives join us and build Canada strong?
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just delivered one of the most expensive budgets in Canadian history. He promised fiscal responsibility during the last election, but Canadians got a staggering $80 billion deficit instead. That's $80 billion in new debt that will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything that Canadians buy. After hearing all this talk about change, Canadians are left wondering one thing. How is this Prime Minister's out-of-control spending any different than Justin Trudeau's?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Canadians across this country empowered us in the last election, and now we're empowering them in Budget 2025. A budget that will make generational investments to create the strongest economy in the G7. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building major infrastructure, homes, and industries. We're protecting our communities, borders, and way of life. And we're empowering Canadians with better careers, strong public services, and more affordable life. We know a strong country can be even stronger, but it takes vision and leadership. It's too bad the Conservatives have neither.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
The Prime Minister isn't investing, he's spending on the backs of future generations. In fact, because of his reckless spending spree, Canadians will be paying over $55 billion a year in interest alone to service the debt. That's more money spent on interest payments than on health care transfers to help patients. Does the Prime Minister realize that his spending is lining the pockets of his banker and bondholder friends instead of funding our doctors and nurses?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister doesn't only have a vision for what this country is now, but what it is going to be. That's why he has assigned multiple ministries to work on transforming healthcare in those critical spaces in the north, spaces that always lacked investment on this side of the House, spaces that never seen the light of day with having support on this side of the House. We're inviting them to finally come into those spaces, support Indigenous people with those critical services. It is something that we know all voters are asking for.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable-Lot-Binière. A costly budget that will make life even more costly for Canadian families. With the budget he tabled yesterday, the Prime Minister will go down in history as the biggest spender in Canadian history. Almost $80 billion in deficits. He promised to spend less, but he's spending $90 billion more. That's $5,400 per family, Mr. Speaker. And you know what? All that money comes straight out of Canadians' pockets. Why has the Prime Minister chosen to drive up the cost of food even further with the most inflationary budget in our history? The Honourable Minister. Canada has a AAA credit rating and the lowest debt-to-GDP ratio in the G7. That's our fiscal position. But what's in the budget? We're doubling housing. We're investing in infrastructure. We're raising the salaries of our CAF members higher. It's unprecedented. We've cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. That's what's in the budget, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud of it.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Speaker, my riding of Halifax is home to a thriving defence sector with more than 10,000 Canadian Armed Forces members. I know that many of my constituents, including those in uniform, watched yesterday as the Minister of Finance tabled Budget 2025. Can the Minister of National Defence speak to the new defence investments Canada is making?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Speaker, through Budget 2025, we're investing over $81 billion over the next 5 years to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in our Canadian Armed Forces. This is a generational investment in defence infrastructure, in capabilities, in training, and of course, in our incredible personnel. From Halifax to Latvia, Mr. Speaker, when the brave men and women of the CAF answer the call to serve, they know we've got their backs, and they know it's time to build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Newtecumseg-Gwillimbury.
Costly budget of broken promises is a disastrous attempt to put out the fire they started. Not only is the Prime Minister fueling inflation with the largest regular budget deficit in Canadian history, he's also hiking up the industrial carbon tax, driving up food prices. Families are already struggling to afford food, housing, and everything else. So why does this Prime Minister want to raise the industrial carbon tax and make life even harder for Canadians?
Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Speaker, we're creating opportunities for Canadians. budget 2025 is about building Canada, creating opportunities for young people. We're building St. John's strong, Etobicoke strong, Vancouver strong, Halifax strong, Fredericton strong, Winnipeg strong, Bradford strong, Mr. Speaker, city by city, community by community, for our young people, for Canadians. Through budget 2025, we're building roads, bridges, hospitals, water systems, community centers, homes that Canadians need, major projects in the national interest, Mr. Speaker. We're doing it with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, and Canadian union workers at
The honourable member for Newton-Tecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Is in this mess because of 10 years of liberal deficits and taxes. Now this costly budget will make things worse by adding $10 million to our debt every hour. It's like cranking up the furnace and leaving the windows open, Mr. Speaker. Canada is the only G7 country where food inflation has gone up 4 months in a row. And by increasing the industrial carbon tax and driving up inflation, this budget will only raise prices higher. Why is this Prime Minister so intent on making life unaffordable for Canadian families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Speaker. I ask the Conservatives to join the rest of the country and love our country. I love Canada, Mr. Speaker. They always seem to call Canada down. On this side of the Assembly, we are marketing Canada. Something you guys should do. On this side of the aisle, we are defending Canada, Mr. Speaker. Something that you guys should do as well. At the end of the day, we're moving. You're down. Shame on you. Let's get on the same page. Canadians deserve that, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister's costly budget is full of broken promises and is the most expensive in Canadian history. It has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. It will drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. Liberals had a chance to lower food costs for Canadians, but they chose to make food more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax, driving the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for Canadians?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
They will be voting against food in schools for children, voting against an income tax cut for Canadians, voting against $75 million in apprenticeship training, voting against a refundable tax credit for personal support workers, voting against $45 million in funding to address violence against women, and voting against crucial supports for seniors like old age security. Canadians want to know, who are these Conservatives fighting for? Because it certainly isn't them.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
We're going to be voting against adding an additional $300 billion in debt for our future generations.
他说，3000亿给下一代，增加3000亿的债。
Driving this is the industrial carbon tax. He also said that he's deeply concerned and expects that food inflation will continue to be a problem moving forward. Experts are warning that food prices will continue skyrocketing. So I ask again, Mr. Speaker, why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive for all Canadians?
他问他为什么要把那个价格加那个企业的碳税啊，把那个价格弄得那么高。
Investments to build Canada strong. This means strong families and strong communities from coast to coast to coast. That includes supports for youth in building skills to help them find and access high-paying careers. We are investing in training and supports for 20,000 youth facing employment barriers. We are investing in an additional 24,000 Canada Summer Jobs opportunities this coming year. Co-ops, internships, apprenticeship opportunities for over 55,000 post-secondary students. Canada's new government has a plan to invest in youth. I encourage members opposite to support this plan and to vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
他说明年会有2万，夏季的时候有24000个工作啊，提供给孩子。
Yesterday, Canadians got a taste of one of the greatest sins a government can commit: overpromise
and under-deliver.
That's right.
The Prime Minister promised a generational and transformational budget crafted by the so-called master of monetary policy. Instead of reducing the deficit and showing fiscal discipline, he produced one of the costliest budget deficits in our nation's history. Rather than providing relief to Canadians by reducing the industrial carbon tax, he chose to increase it. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister raising the industrial carbon tax and making food even more expensive for Canadians?
好像这个 industrial carbon tax 是他们 conservative 现在最关注的事情啊。
Is about focusing on youth. Our government is investing in youth, particularly Indigenous youth. Investments like in Inuit Nunagat University. It'll be a landmark step forward for education and reconciliation in Canada. It'll strengthen local economies, build capacity in the north, and support Inuit-led research. We hope the members opposite will support this initiative and vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
他之前说要 sacrifice youth 啊，年轻人啊，现在是说这个 budget 就是 support youth。
Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, food professor, has quoted, "That's been our concern from day one. The gap between wholesale prices in Canada versus the U.S. food wholesale prices have actually increased, and we believe that one factor driving this is the carbon tax. It doesn't take a central banker to figure out that eliminating the industrial carbon tax will help lower food prices. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister choosing to raise the industrial carbon tax when so many Canadians can barely afford groceries? Yeah, way to go!
Honourable Minister.
加拿大现在大选是没有意义的啊，没有意义的。现在加拿大人还没有苦到饭吃不起啊，等所有人都去排队了，都去吃排 food bank 了啊，大多数人都去了啊，这个时候就可以大选了。
Canadians are going to build the future we want to build for ourselves. As we work for build the strongest economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker, our new government is helping our agriculture, fish, and seafood sectors adapt and respond to the economic challenges. This includes a new trade diversification strategy and $75 million of agri-marketing. I suggest they dig out their red and white sweaters and get them on and get on the bus.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, this budget proves one thing. The Liberals don't understand how real Canadians live. Every dollar this government spends comes straight out of Canadians' pockets, and under this Prime Minister, everything costs more. After years of inflation and higher taxes, they've chosen to raise the industrial carbon tax. That means higher prices at the checkout line. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
其实说到现在，很重要的一件事情就是 food inflation 将会上去了，对吧？接下来很多东西都会变贵了啊，这个通胀就要上去了。
We're empowering unions across the country to train our young people because in Budget 2025, we invested that we're meeting our campaign commitment to double the Union Training Innovation Program. $75 million to help young people train to build Canada with Canadian lumber, Canadian steel, and Canadian unionized workers, Mr. Speaker.
你看加拿大对年轻人支出只有75 million 啊。 对一个那个什么组织就好多个 billion.
Country's history outside of the pandemic. This cost of this Liberal budget will drive up the price of food, and it's an irresponsible attack on our food security. Meanwhile, over 2 million Canadians are using food banks, and that will skyrocket with a deficit of nearly $80 billion. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop waging war on farmers and finally come up with a real plan to lower food prices?
所以在现在这个状况下。 通胀接下来肯定会上去的。
I'm a bit surprised by the question from the member from the Conservative Party, because when she was a member of the Liberal Party in Quebec City, she voted in favor of putting a price on carbon. And so she'll be very relieved to learn that the industrial carbon price doesn't apply in Quebec because Quebec has its own system. So it's just hypocrisy coming from the other side of the House. The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. While Canadians tighten their belts, this government keeps on spending recklessly. They've just added $90 billion in spending, or $5,400 per household. That's less money. This is going to affect people in Charlevoix.
他代替每个家庭花掉5400块，54000啊，50,000还是50,000 什么？
Had 4 consecutive months of rising food inflation. Why is
好像是5400块。
carbon tax and making food more expensive for everyone? The Honourable Minister. I'll repeat what the Prime Minister said so that about the impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices. It's virtually zero. And my colleague talked about conservative hypocrisy when it comes to food security. This is just another one of their inconsistencies. When she was in Quebec City, they did put a price on carbon, and it didn't stop there. Every day they vote against our initiatives to help families, whether it's food school programs, the child tax benefit, and so we will do without any.
你看他们的政策就是有那个计划在学校里有吃的，但是他不给你家里足够的吃的，这样孩子就要 rely on 学校，以后就是对吧？学校教什么你就必须得去啊，你家里因为没有吃的。
They expect the government to build, protect, and strengthen communities through historic investments. Can the minister inform the House of the generational infrastructure investment planned in Budget 2025? The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for that question. Canadians need strong, resilient communities supported by reliable infrastructure. Budget 2025 launches the Building Strong Communities Fund, a historic $51 billion investment to deliver modern infrastructure, enable new housing development, and strengthen communities across the country. Together with our partners, we will deliver the infrastructure Canadians rely on.
你不要看这位住房部长，他是说要把房子价格弄下来啊，其实他是想炒上去。
is cruel and unusual punishment. The criminals in this case possess materials depicting evil acts against children as young as 3 years old. Conservatives believe it is outrageous that these types of child predators could walk free with less than a year in prison. This court decision must be overturned using the notwithstanding clause, but the Liberals have refused to act. Why are they more concerned with protecting the rights of these vile predators than the rights of these innocent victims?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, let me be unequivocal. Child abusers are heinous criminals and should be treated as such by Canada's criminal laws. We will be moving forward with legislative solutions that will give clear directions to the courts to ensure that serious crimes are met with serious penalties. If the Conservatives want not only to ask questions in the House, but actually achieve...
这位，我觉得从住房部长，从移民部长干到住房部长，现在是 Justice 那个部长啊，搞来搞去，我觉得他是能力真的是很有限的啊。之前说不干了，现在又干了啊。
Sexual abuse and exploitation material deserve lengthy prison sentences. They cause unimaginable suffering and harm to innocent children. These precious kids will carry the scars of what was done to them for the rest of their lives. Conservatives and Canadians are calling on the government to invoke the notwithstanding clause and overturn this appalling Supreme Court ruling immediately. The Liberals refuse to do so. Why are the Liberals more concerned with protecting the rights of guilty pedophiles than standing up for the rights of innocent children?
这位挺有气势的啊，挺有气势的。
Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
我这样讲你们听得清楚吗？
Going to be bringing forth legislation that is going to address this particular issue. But I would like to ask why the Conservatives have been against every measure that we have put forward to protect our children, Mr. Speaker. We brought an online harms legislation. They voted against it. We brought lawful access tools for law enforcement. They are against it. Mr. Speaker, why are they protecting child abusers?
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Two men pleaded guilty to having hundreds of images of innocent children. They were sexually abused, they were exploited, they were tortured. The Supreme Court made a decision that a 1-year jail sentence was too harsh. Conservatives vehemently disagree with this decision. The Liberals have an opportunity to use the notwithstanding clause and take a stand for innocent children. Why is this government concerned with protecting the rights of pedophiles instead of standing up for those children?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, I have been speaking to lots of families that have been victims of crime.
That's right.
And Mr. Speaker, many have been asking for online harms legislation. We brought legislation like that in this House. And that member, Mr. Speaker, was active in voting against it and made sure that that didn't pass in this House. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, law enforcement is also asking for tools to catch predators. But the Conservatives, guess what, are against it, Mr. Speaker. So why are they so concerned about the privacy rights of criminals instead of protecting our children?
你们看到那个女的变成那老头嘛？越变成 cheer up。
Okay, colleagues.
直播吵架啊！我们直播吵架，台斯你好。
The Honourable Member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect, and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships first and results people can trust. We have listened at kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous...
Sorry, but a member is asking a question, and there are multiple other exchanges happening across the floor. I don't know. I couldn't identify the voices, but there were many voices. Yeah, it's okay. I understand. Okay.
From the top, it was their side that interrupted.
It was both ends. Okay, we're going to start from the top. The Honourable Member for Peterborough.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected us to build, protect, and empower. In the North, that means reliable partnerships and results people can trust. We have listened to kitchen tables across the North, and Budget 2025 reflects their voices. Could the minister share how this budget delivers with Indigenous partners so communities see results where they live, and how this approach makes the North a driver of Canada's prosperity and a pillar of our sovereignty?
The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Northerners asked for transformative change, and our new government answered with generational plans to build, protect, and empower. This means skills, homes, and hope for Northern youth. Our budget delivers year-round routes and ports across the Arctic Corridor and the Churchill Gateway to keep Canada strong and free. Through Major Projects Office, projects will move faster with Indigenous partnership. So this means building with the North for the North.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberals tabled a budget with a deficit of nearly $80 billion. Did you hear that right? Nearly $80 billion. That's huge. And the impact will be catastrophic. It's just the same old, and what's more, the Liberals had the chance to reduce the cost of food by scrapping the industrial carbon tax. But what did they do instead? They increased it. Nearly $80 billion taken out of Canadian pockets, and nothing to counter food inflation. Can this Prime Minister stop breaking his promises and finally control his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My mother knows the difference between an investment and an expense. My kids get the difference. And this budget is an investment in our Canadian youth, in our own resources, so that we can get through this crisis. Canadians elected us to do that, and we will do it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of Canadians don't seem to know that between the day a budget is tabled and when it's voted on, the government can make changes. I desperately hope and that the answer will be yes to this question. Is the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance prepared to be flexible, work in a spirit for the national interest, and be prepared to make changes in this budget before it comes to a vote?
Good question.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course we are always listening to Canadians. What I would stress to the honourable member is that this is a budget that invests historically in climate competitiveness in this country, in getting Canada to net zero by 2050, and making sure that Canada remains a leader in the worldwide fight against climate change. I would invite her to compare us to any country around the world, especially our neighbours to the south, put this in perspective and understand, and as I know she will, that this is an historic effort on an historic issue, and it's an historic budget, Mr. Speaker.
Et cela met fin à la période des questions.
And that puts an end to question period.
没了，这个结束。前面看就已经不多了。我们来讲好吗？讲聊聊，你们有什么好聊的？讲讲你们的看法。觉得接下来会怎么样？怎么个方式通过啊？中小小说会顺利通过，怎么样通过啊？而且我觉得这个780亿好像是可持续性不强，因为他现在的780亿是那个债，对吧？就是每年它会增加的债，但是到2030年之后，它的光利息就要700多亿。那你就等于说你什么都不干，什么都不支出，什么也都不收，你就是不能做到收支平衡，或者是能稍微赚一点的话，能有一些盈余的话，那你就是亏了啊，你就要得亏700多亿啊，所以这个其实也挺难的，而且这个上去了之后，结果就是会通胀嘛，对吧？肯定会有人要买单嘛。我们看那个评论区啊，你们可以在评论区聊聊，讲讲自己的看法。泰斯说，对，这就是共产，懂的啊。中小小说，越穷的人越支持自由党，越支持自由党，国家就越穷。泰斯说，这就是共产主义啊，就是大家一起吃大锅饭啊，如何发家的啊？也这个大家音译一下啊，懂的，就是靠这个越穷越支持的这个话啊，越来越没有脑子嘛，再给你每天灌输一些这个那个思想啊，我们会变得很好，别人都是不好的，对吧？钟小小说，感觉 NDP 不太可能投反对票，因为2025年重新选举对 NDP 不利，他们怕失去席位啊。这是钟小小说的啊。NDP 即使弃权，预算也能通过啊，就只要 NDP 弃权，他的那个票也是比那个多，因为他有169席啊，那个加在一起是多少？22加144就是166，就算加上绿党那个一票也就167，所以只要 NDP 弃权，这个事情就通过了。其实，所以这个通过的概率其实挺大的啊。这里要3-0胜，那里还要只能打平啊，打平还不能1-1打平，还要0-0打平啊。这个就像足球一样，这个概率其实还是挺大的。现在自由党，泰斯说，现在自由党创造的就是政府投资项目和职位，而不是私有企业。对啊，就是搞基建，再搞一些什么这种监测这个监测那个的职位啊，就还有他们什么 Build Canada， 我也不知道 Build Canada 这个工作是做什么啊？这个政府工太简单了，这个 Build Canada， 它这个房子其实经济好了，大家都想。就有工作了，就好的工作，大家都愿意想买房、想结婚、想生孩子，对吧？那你不用 build， 你有钱了之后，地产商自然而然会那个，你把那个建房的速度给加快一点，不就好了吗？搞一个花什么130亿 13 billion 啊，130亿去造一个什么 Build Canada 那个 project 去搞这个东西，这个130亿花下去能造一栋房子出来，要有人买啊，对吧？这个是最关键的。钟小小说，其实政府投资这个做法没问题，问题是政府投资不能有长期效果。要是投资都是传统行业，那就是浪费钱。对，政府的投资应该是什么？就是说你看到现在，比如说AI 的企业，包括是一些新兴的企业，别人不敢弄啊，那政府可以帮助啊，通过这个投资来帮助这个企业，比如说一些人家有高科技的想法的那些企业，有能力的啊，你帮忙资助一下。他从传统的那个贷款里面可能贷不到啊，但政府希望通过这个你资助一下啊，这个可以帮助整个国家在高科技企业上面能够不说领先吧，跟上脚步，对吧？你在搞传统的那些什么挖金矿了、挖煤了、造地铁了、造什么这个东西其实已经跟不上了嘛。你投资5年10年下来，你把那个路修好了，把那个弄好了，最后发现没什么用啊！机场修了个新的，最后他妈的连人都没有，人都走了，对吧？对啊，政府的职位，开始说，政府的职位看似创造了好多职位啊，但是都是虚的，并不是实体经济变好了，因为你政府的这个东西。你没有产出的呀，对吧？你搞出来这个东西没有产出，你不是说像这种私营企业，我就举个最简单的例子，我就卖馒头，那我要有生意，我要有人喜欢吃我的馒头，那我去包那个东西，对吧？去蒸去卖，有生意那别人不喜欢了，那我要得创新，里面得加新的原料。牛肉不行，加猪肉；猪肉不行，加那个海鲜；海鲜不行，你再高档一点，加鱼翅、鲍鱼、加海参上去，什么都加上去，那别人喜欢了，那你就生意就来了，对吧？你搞基建，搞那个东西，不管别人喜不喜欢，你这个东西造完了就放在那里了，对吧？这个最终其实没有创造任何的东西，而且你造这个东西，最后也都是老百姓买单，他没有那个。像做生意那些私营企业那些东西，对吧？这个所以不行啊。现在来了几个人了？还有谁再聊聊？我们如果没有什么，我们明天再直播吧。我来把这个移一下啊。没有人的话，我就下了。明天我看，如果下午还有空啊，他们每天都会吵的。我们如果可以的话，我们以后就看他们什么时候再吵架，我们再看吧，看看他们怎么通过法。通过应该是没什么大问题，因为现在好像这个趋势，魁北克他也就是质问他啊 ，NDP 今天好像都没有出来讲话过。所以应该是没有什么大的问题。多伦多房价6月大批续约，到时候估计很多人崩溃啊。明年6月份很多人续约，那就是买在最高位，贷款最低位啊。现在要新的房贷，你看这几天美债收益率又上去了，所以这个房贷要下来，其实还是挺难的啊！现在你就算下来一点，现在就算跌下来一点啊，你签5年、签3年的，你能拿到4%以下，3.89啊、3.79啊、3.89啊，那比之前的2点几的出头一点的，那你也是要增加了不少了，对吧？而且现在你想持有房子，包括物价什么涨那么多，确实压力挺大的。最关键的就是企业搬迁了，有那么多人，你想。好像别人搬迁别人失业了跟我没关系啊，我没有失业，我做什么餐饮的，我做什么装修的，我做其他的这些行业，就做任何东西啊，好像没有关系。你弄钢铝厂啊，那些汽车制造厂啊，那些包括一些什么那些化工产品的厂，你失业5000个人、3000个人、2000个人， 好像对我是没有失业啊，我这里还是有生意的。但是他们失业的话会抢占市场的啊。以前国内我记得国内就是这样一个下岗潮啊，一弄就是大家都受到影响，这个其实是个很大的问题啊，会波及到的嘛，对吧？因为别人失业了什么都肯干嘛，到时候就特别是从低端的或者是从相关的一些就开始慢慢的就渗透过来的啊。如果你是怎么说呢？如果说你是做服务行业的啊，像做餐饮的，那别人失业了肯定减少吃饭嘛，对吧？你是做装修的，人家失业了肯定会对装修这个需求量就减少了嘛，所以会影响到的啊。你就不要说影响到你失业，就是影响到你收益没以前那么多了啊。就做餐饮你也有工资，但小费没以前那么多了，老板也没有那么好脸色了啊，那你也是日子也挺难过的。好了，我们今天就讲这些啊，明天我们有空我们再直播，拜拜。